Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Kyle Iris, and today we're going to be looking at a PvP. This I scoured around and had a look at a few people comments and things like that, and saw that people wanted a few like Protoss tutorials. So I wanted to kind of find a lower level game. This is going to concern more bronze, silver, gold players more than anything. I'm pretty sure that platinum to diamond players, although judging on some people that I've seen platinum and diamond, I'm not so sure this might not apply to them either, but we'll have to see about that. But yeah, it's going to apply to a lower level of player. No offense to other people or whatever, but yeah, we're going to have a look at a critical analysis of what's going on in these matches. This, for a start, this Chrono Boost's way too early. He's not going to get full usage of that, I don't believe. It's going to clip just, yep, clipped a little bit there. But yeah, I asked a friend who had Oneoldfogie, who had a match that he was willing to let me critique. So, and it just happened to be a PvP, so I'll try and critique both players as well as I can do. Now, the first thing I'm noticing that's very bad here is the fact that he did Chrono Boost before that pylon went down and clipped it a little bit, and also he's not producing any more probes for a while. He should, as a Protoss player, you should always be producing the probes. As you can see here, Oneoldfogie is Chrono Boosting out those probes initially, but he does have a lot of energy stored up there and a lot of minerals, as you can see in the top corner. He's running up to 100 now, so he should be bringing out more probes. As a Protoss player, you can spend pretty, unless you're going for a really early 2-gate timing push or 3-gate timed push. I don't know about 3-gate, but I wouldn't advise that. It depends on what your opponent's doing. But you should, as I say, he's up to 200 minerals now, and you should always constantly bring out the probes to boost up your economy. This saturation could be a lot better at this point in time in the game. He does have a Zealot on the way, and has a trailing probe over here. Likewise with Paul, there's not much going on here. He's not producing the amount of probes he should be doing. He's thrown down his gateway and his cybernetics core. I believe he threw down that gate on 11, 12. That's the right time to be doing it, especially if you're wanting to kind of apply early pressure or defend against a kind of 2-gate push or anything like that. But you need to be constantly bringing out the probes, and there's a lot of energy stored up here that could be used on pumping out the probes. So as soon as you get your first pylon down, you want to be chrono boosting the probes out constantly until, say, if you're against Terran and you're afraid of an early Reaper rush, you want to get that cybernetics core down as quickly as possible and then chrono boost out a Stalker. And if you're wanting to go for like any kind of 4-gate play and things like that, it's nice to, I like to use my Chrono Boost on my warp gates when they've finished, in order to, you know, get the cooldowns out quicker and quicker. But it's always, imagine the Chrono Boost to be your queen. And we all know about Zerg and how the queen macro is so important. For Protoss, Chrono Boost is no different. You need to be boosting out, using Chrono Boost as much as possible. These players are constantly having quite a lot of energy that they could be using. Really bad saturation here. You need at least 2.5, 3 lines of probes down on this bottom frame to make sure that you are mining efficiently. He is going for this kind of 3-gate build currently, is Paul, and Oneoldfogie has got 2 gates down, and I believe he'll be throwing down another gate quite soon or whatever. He does only have 1 gas, and I'm not quite sure I agree with 1 gas at this point. I mean, considering the saturation on his minerals, 1 gas is probably fine, but he is now boosting out the probes quite well. And I would suggest, if he was going for a more Stalker heavy build, having this 2nd gateway down, as well as sentries, they also help fantastically, in order to give yourself as much advantage as possible, because sentries are ridiculously expensive when it comes to gas, and sentries are fantastic for the guardian shields and force fields. Paul does have a sentry out here, which will add all the more advantages to his army. I think one of the hardest things to grasp in StarCraft 2 is the implementation of caster units in your army and your force. Fogie's moving out here with a few Zealots and a Stalker. I would say that that's probably enough Zealots for now, especially if you're going to be assaulting this choke. They can get very funneled up at the top of these ramps, so if you are going for any kind of 3-4 gate push, and Fogie is going for a 4 gate push here, he should, firstly, he should have his second gas. The saturation's okay, it could be a little bit better. And I believe just then Paul did see these units moving out. He did have a gateway in the production, but he cancelled that gateway and threw down a robotics facility. I imagine he was wanting to either see what was going on in Fogie's base or bring out an Immortal to counter any kind of Stalkers that Fogie would be bringing in. Immortals at this point in time, if somebody's making a 4-gate push, you know they're going to be bringing a lot of Stalkers in. So if you go 3-gate Robo, those Immortals are going to shred those Stalkers. And Stalkers at this kind of choke for the attacking player are so important. So if you have an Immortal out, but he isn't, he's bringing out an Observer. If you have an Immortal out and position it on this high ground, they're going to rip through those Stalkers. So it's a fantastic way to fully counter the Stalker play of someone coming to your base. This is, again, this is probably enough Zealots at this point in time from Oneoldfogie. He still does not have this second Vespene Geyser down. He does throw a Forge down. I'm not quite sure why. A bit nervous about holding maybe his frontal choke here, but I wouldn't be too nervous about it. I mean, if he's done the proper scouting, and he has seen quite a lot of the map, done a bit of scouting, he hasn't necessarily seen what's going on in this player's base. Paul is now throwing down this 4th gateway. I'm not sure I agree with that, because I'm not sure that he can fund that many. He does have a lot of gas piling up, so he should probably warp in more sentries with all these cooldowns that are not being... That's another thing to point out. When you're playing as Protoss, that's a good force field there, blocking off these units so they can't get up. Fogie's moving back with these units, and as you can see, he has quite a lot of Zealots, so he can't utilize... If he'd have had a lot of Stalkers trapped here, or if he'd moved the Zealots up initially and trapped them there, and he had more Stalker reinforcement, he could have shot up since he had sight of the high ground using his Zealots. So it's a very good reason as to why you shouldn't get tons and tons of Zealots, but a nice mixture, a few Zealots and quite a few Stalkers as well. These Zealots now up here ripping up these Stalkers. Paul at this point should have microed. You should micro your Stalkers back to avoid as much Sentry Zealot damage as possible, and he still doesn't have that Immortal out. I would have liked to have seen the Immortal out in order to take out these Stalkers all the more effectively. Fogie now warping in more units here, making nice use of those warp gates, but it's so important to make use of every single cooldown of warp that you've got, because if you're not using it, it's just wasted units, especially if you've got this much banked up. So there's also a lot of chrono boost on these. He could be chrono boosting these gateways in order to get the cooldown a lot faster, and he's got about 300 minerals in the bank. So looking at the saturation again, it's got quite what good there. He could have a few more, like 4 more on there to make it fully saturated. But at this point, it's GG from Paul. These Stalkers are just ripping through his base. It's good to note that as Oneoldfogie came in here, he focused down these pylons, which is powering all these. I would say that you need quite a few pylons powering a lot of gateways, especially if they're the main bulk of your push. Because if someone does get into your base and take out those pylons, it effectively just renders them completely useless. Anyway, thank you very much for listening to this. I'm pretty sure there are a few points that I did not cover. I will try and do more tutorial kind of videos in the future on these levels, maybe higher, I'm not quite sure yet. But let me know what you think, and thank you very much for subscribing. If you have subscribed, you are fantastic. We've got over 100 subscribers now. It's absolutely awesome in like 10 days of me being on YouTube. So anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you later.